Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are playing as the High Elves against the Skaven, and I decided to go for a bit of a scumbag build, and we'll definitely see how it works out. We're going against Skaven. Like I've said before, Skaven have huge issues dealing with kiting and dealing with heavy cav, so what do? We bring a bit of both. Looking at this comp, I did decide to bring Teclis. He's got quite a few of his spells. He's got Net, he's got Enfeebling Foe, of course Greater Arcane Conduit, Flock of Doom for wrecking blobs, regrowth, Potion of Troy, of course, to keep himself alive, all that good stuff. Teclis, of course, very solid lord in everything except actually fighting. A bit of a mistake was, I think, bring Kindle Flame when I didn't bring Flaming Sword of Ruin, but you know, it can still synergize with the Fireborn we've got over here, so you never know, it can work. Another thing, I have been experimenting with chariots a lot more lately, especially heroic chariots. After kind of advertising them in that my heroic chariot video and why they're better, I've really been trying to test them out more and more and trying to theory craft just what matchups they can really shine in. So shameless plug into my other video here, but regardless, I did decide to bring two noble chariots, and rather than nobles on horses to try to fight large, we're going to try to pile through the Skaven masses and do as much damage as we can. Our front line here, if you can call it a front line, is composed of 5 units of Shadow Warriors. These guys are, of course, passable melee combatants. They'll definitely outbrawl lower-end Skaven troops, and they can definitely lay the smackdown on shielded Skaven infantry with their missile damage. The only thing that really gives them trouble is stuff like Stormmen or Stormmen halberds, but otherwise, you know, they'll do Doom Wheels, I suppose, but otherwise they do rather well. And if we need to fight Doom Wheels, we always do have our Fireborn as well as Dragon Princes over here to shut them down, and of course, they are backed by Teclis with a net to really make sure those guys can't run away. Finally, in the back here, I did Vanguard deploy some Lean Maneuver Archers. Not sure if my opponent would decide to go with a more conventional artillery build, though as you can see, he did not. Quickly glossing over my opponent's build, though, it is definitely a bit of a mixed bag. Some Gunner Runners with Poison in the front line. For his front line, his actual front line here is a mix of Skaven Slaves, Clan Rats with spears, Clan Rats spears with shields, Clan Rats with shields, all sorts of things. Skulk for the Lord. If we quickly glance at the spells, it actually looks like he's got everything. He only has Liber Bonicus, so no Rod of Corruption by the look of it, which is a little surprising. You generally see that, but he does have all his spells. Not what I would recommend. You only really need like a few, but still, very solid choice. Of course, Lord Skulk, hyper competitive, and he is being backed here by a assassin. So the assassin rat coming in with Rival High Talisman, Slippery, as well as Trophy Heads, and of course his smoke bombs. Never not worth to bring smoke bombs because they're a free upgrade. So always bring them. In the midst of the fight here, we do have some Plague Monks, some Plague Monk Sensor Bearers, some Death Runners, some Clan Rat Spears with shields once again, and some Stormmen Halberds, so really a mixed bag. And then finally 2 Rat Ogres over here on the flanks. And so, yeah, there's not much to say. It's a really mixed bag of troops. Unfortunately, the Rat Ogres do get into my Shadow Warriors before I managed to get the net off, so definitely not what I was hoping to see. But now they're netted, and now they're in for absolute hell, because Rat Ogres with their terrible armor and non-existent survivability against missiles, they're really going to start falling apart. They're really going to start suffering, and in come the Dragon Princes with a flank charge who are really going to pulverize these guys. And unfortunately for me, though, in the pits here, my Nobles getting hit by Wither, being hit by Trophy Heads, getting whittled down really badly, but they are raking quite a few kills, 20-25 already, trying to push through, trying to get clear of the fight, getting harassed by the Skaven assassin, but, you know, we should be able to get clear, and we get a beautiful blob for our Flock of Doom, and it works well. It does a lot of damage to these Clan Rats, to everything here except for the Stormmen. It's going to do quite a bit, and even Stormmen will take some damage. Unfortunately, we're getting a little bogged down here on the trash chaff, but we will be able to extricate ourselves and get out of dodge. In the meantime, unfortunately, the Gunner Runners with Poison surprisingly outrunning the Delirium Reavers rather well and doing a lot of damage, so that's not what we like. But over here, the Fireborn get a full-blooded charge in on the Rat Ogres and completely dumpster them. Over here, the Skaven Slaves are actually going to make contact with the Shadow Warriors, which is not what we want, but we are going to push the Shadow Warriors into close quarters, trying to shut these guys down, and they'll do some okay work. Unfortunately, a bit of a misplay here on my part. I'm actually going to push Teclis into close quarters. We are going to get hit by a Rival High Talisman. Not a bad move, debuffing everything here. And now, suddenly, Teclis is getting bogged down by Clan Rat Spears. I'm not entirely sure why. His mass should be higher than what it seems to be here. But he's not able to pull out, so Teclis is completely screwed, and he's getting torn to shreds. Or he soon will be. Over here, the Nobles, in the meantime, not really doing all that much, kind of grinding around, doing very little, but trying to chew through these Clan Rat Spears. And, you know, like I've said before, chariots, the heroic chariots grind surprisingly well, but Teclis, while the Nobles are able to extricate themselves, Teclis is not, and he's being completely ruined. Elsewhere, in the meantime, the Shadow Warriors getting caught up and intercepted, and you can see the clan rats now getting into the fight, which is really bad because while Skaven slaves are trash, the clan rats not so much. They'll definitely hold much better. Over here, the Fireborn being used wreck the gutter runners, which is really good, but at the same time, it does mean they're not helping cover my infantry. And the infantry is in full flight. The Shadow Warriors here running for dear life from the Plague Monks. The Shadow Warriors over here getting overrun by Plague Monks, by Death Runners, all those sorts of units. And between Stormmen Halberds and the Death Runners and even the Clan or Skaven Slaves, these Giant Princes are going to start taking quite a beating. Because with their armor cut by 50%, they really don't stand a chance. Unfortunately over here, Teclis is not only going to fail to escape, he is actually going to go down to a Liber Bonicus. And that was quite a disaster for me, because at this point, you can see the balance of power shifting decisively in my opponent's favor with the Lord Death, and of course that means I have no more magic for the rest of the game, and that means these nobles, for example, who still have potentially a lot of healing to do, are not going to be making any comebacks. So I decided to be a bit of a troll, and we are going to run away here, just running roughshod. We're going to crash into the side of these Stormmen. We're going to pile through, try to do as much damage as we can, trying to save our friendly neighborhood Shadow Warriors here, and just grind through these troops. And you really take advantage of our nobles' high mass, high damage output to try to break these enemy troops up. And you can see the Stormmen losing model after model. They've already lost just about 10-15 models in the space of just a few seconds. Nobles are doing a great job, and my opponent has used his Liber Bonicus already, so because of that, it shouldn't be too much of a threat, at least for a little while. In the meantime, the Fireborn here able to spring the Shadow Warriors loose. The Universe coming back once again, getting shot to death by the gunner runners, but we simply don't care. I don't really care about the Reaver Archers at this point. They're so badly beat up, I can't heal them. It doesn't matter. I just want them to bog these guys down, waste their ammo, and buy me some time. The Chariots, in the meantime, are going to pull away from these Stormmen Halberds, and we are simply chipping away. I'm trying to save our friendly neighborhood Shadow Warriors over here from the Plague Monks, but it's just not happening, and they are going to be able to chase us off the fit map, which really, really sucks. These Dragon Princes over here, despite saving the lives of their friendly Shadow Warriors, are very badly beaten up now. They sacrificed themselves for the greater good, going in against those Death Runners, and now they're in a really bad spot. So I'm essentially reduced to just a few units. Over here, these Shadow Warriors buying some time, once again, for the greater good. But if we take an overarching look of the battlefield, you can see the balance of power at this point is even out of the middle. If we look at everything, it's just a handful of Shadow Warriors, like 2 healthy units, and a lot of mauled ones, 2 mauled ones. The Fireborn, who are in the fight here against Stormmen and Halberds, and then our 2 very beat up nobles. So things are definitely not looking too hot for the forces of good. That said, we do still have a chance. You can see here the Stormmen and Halberds, of course, not the best leadership. The nobles are going to charge into the back of these Skaven Slave Spears and then promptly plow through, going into the Stormmen and Halberds, and suddenly it is going to be absolute chaos. The morale is going to tank, it's going to absolutely drop, and they're not going to be able to hold up at all. In the meantime, the Skaven Assassin here is going to get bogged down by the Shadow Warriors in close quarters, and turning around, we are going to be able to connect more and more rear charges into the backs of these troops while Skrulk is not around to protect them, to support them, and suddenly you can see these Death Runners in full flight, these Stormmen with Halberds mauled and falling apart, and even the Plague Monk Sensor Bearers, despite a stand your ground going down, are not going to be able to hold on forever. They're definitely going to start falling apart, and I do push the Shadow Warriors into close quarters, trying to make sure they bog down my opponent as the nobles push on, pushing through these Clan with spears, racking up hundreds of kills. The Fireborn up to 161 kills, despite having lost about a third of their models and well over half their HP. They're still such a menace on the battlefield. Really doing some great work. Over here, the Plague Monks are finally spotted, and I do believe my opponent starts pulling them back into the fray, but they are very much out of position. A very valuable unit that needs to be elsewhere, but it's not here. And we are able to get our Shadow Warriors once again into melee, diving into close quarters, trying to bog down these enemy troops, and doing some very, very valuable work in the process. They're going to be able to scythe through these clan rats relatively efficiently, and really buy us some time elsewhere to be winning the match. Over here, the Dragon Princes as well as the nobles are kind of piling through these clan rats. You can see the Shadow Warriors harassing, firing into the backline, getting that missile penalty going in, and of course the nobles racking up hundreds of kills, just plowing through these guys. And like I said before, they do a lot of damage to infantry. They kill entire models very, very quickly, and we are going to be able to get these Shadow Warriors once again into melee to do some damage, even as they're firing from the hip there at the Gunrunners with poison. Our 2 nobles here doing an absolutely stellar job, even as our Fireborn are bouncing away from Skrulk, running for dear life, trying to get into the back of these Skaven Slaves, trying to break up these troops that would otherwise be threatening our Shadow Warriors. It is certainly a bit of a race against time. These Plague Monks are coming back. We're going to plow the Dragon Princes into them, trying to stop these Plague Monks from reconnecting with the rest of their forces. The Dragon Princes don't stand a chance here. They are definitely not, despite just because of their very low model count at this point, just because of their very low HP, they're not really meant to be there, but they will do their best. And the Fireborn, in the meantime, lancing these gun runners in the back, just running them down, sending Skaven rats flying, doing some great work alongside these nobles. You can see that guy swinging his whip around. Trophy heads does go down, but it's not going to be enough to save these gutter runners, and that is definitely very, very important. We are going to be able to sort of buckle these gutter runners, which is one of the last secured units for the Skaven, but despite that, the balance of power remains very grim. Of course, my opponent does have rallying troops on the periphery, Clannad Spears. He's managed to get rid of my Dragon Princes, essentially. They're down to 8 models, still fighting for the cause, but very low. We are able to whittle down the Assassin, however, and he is going to be forced off the battlefield. You can see ignominiously just fleeing for dear life here. That filthy rat just not really able to do very much anymore. Just completely crippled. And that is going to start shifting things back into the center. With Skrulk badly beaten up, my opponent is now suddenly in a position where he's suddenly in a rather grim position. Before, the advantage was decisively his. He had a lot of troops, he had Skrulk, he had, of course, his Assassin, and I had lost Teclis, and with that, all of my casting, which would have been making huge differences against those mobs. But, all of a sudden, we do have our Shadow Warriors freed up, the infantry is in full route, and we are able to take our Fireborn and start running them up. You can see the Fireborn up to 312 kills, doing some great work. Over here, the nobles are going to run over the poor Rat Lord, and you can see he's kind of trying to fight, but the Shadow Warriors are going to surround him. He doesn't have the best melee defense, and despite his Contaminate ability and all that sort of stuff, he's not quite going to be able to take on these Shadow Warriors. Perhaps he could win in a protracted engagement. They don't have a bonus versus infantry like, say, Shadow Walkers. They don't have the most amazing melee stats, certainly. But they're doing some work. They're definitely getting the work in. Skrulk is definitely getting beaten down. And in the meantime, the fight is going very much in our favor elsewhere. These Fireborn over here mopping up some clan rats, some filthy rats. The nobles running over here, running towards these gut runners, trying to force them off. The clan rat spears will flee at the mere sight of the majesty of these nobles, of these Tyrnok chariots. And so we're simply going to turn around and come back to deal with old grumpy Skrulk, who is getting surrounded here. He did manage to get rid of the Shadow Warriors a little bit, but with the Dragon Princes kind of cycling in and out, really punting him around, suddenly the balance of power swing decisively out of his favor, despite where it was just mere seconds earlier. Over here, the Gutter Runners do rally, so we're going to shift one noble back, and at this point, it is simply going to be essentially GG, as Skrulk here is getting mulched, getting pulped by those troops, and over here, the chariot is going to be riding off, chasing after those filthy rats as the match ends in favor of the High Elves. So definitely a bit of trolley cycle charging mobility action towards the end. I think it does show the importance of never throwing or never giving up a match after it's the balance of power says it's way out of your control or way out of your range of winning. The Dragon Princes over 300 kills, the Fireborn just absolute MVPs, but the Nobles also 168 and 149 kills, and they were able to really destroy units like the Stormmen, who would have otherwise been a menace for my Dragon Princes, who really are not as well equipped to deal with such units. They were also able to just mulch through that lower end infantry alongside the Fireborn and alongside those units really, really efficiently, and I found them to perform rather well. Even the Shadow Warriors, of course, did rather well when forced to fight against Skaven slaves and clan rats, so that was to be expected. Really, the match wouldn't have been so close, I think, had I not lost Teclis so quickly. Had I managed to keep Teclis, the fact that I had Flock of Doom, the fact that I would have had Regrowth, and all that sort of stuff would have been a huge boon in the protracted engagement. But unfortunately, it is what it is. It happened, and I couldn't really do anything about it. As far as my opponent's build goes, I think it's a very motley assortment. It's a very interesting oddball take on the matchup. I don't think this is a random comp. It seems to well designed to be a random comp, and the fact that he did bring Liber Bubonicus, which AI usually doesn't pick items, makes me think it wasn't random. You could always be wrong, but I don't think it was a random comp. I do think that the build did have some, I would say, disadvantage. Definitely a very low leadership on a lot of the units. I think you might be better off bringing some Stormmen. I'm not personally that fond of Plague Monks in matchups where you can get mulched by ranged fire pretty effectively. High Elves is one of those matchups where you'll be seeing Illyrian Reavers, you'll be seeing Shadow Warriors, you'll be seeing a lot of those troops, and even Dragon Prince is just on the charge. They'll mulch them really effectively, so I feel like Stormmen are generally a better choice, or Clan Rats because they're cheaper. I think Plague Monks certainly have matchups where they're good, but I don't think this is one of them. Otherwise, my opponent simply let his force get way overextended. Had he stayed more compact, even if he had to chase, even if he was forced to let some units flee, the fact that he allowed his force to get so separated over a wide space of area meant that I was able to just rack up hundreds of kills with my nobles, with my Fireborn, with my Dragon Princes, without real interference from his lords, without getting dragged into the muck. And of course, the early loss of the Rat Ogres was an absolutely critical pick for me. Definitely helped a huge amount because that mass and that AP could have been incredibly powerful in the late game. Nonetheless, getting into my opponent here, a little shade. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below to keep up with additional content. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, do not hesitate to ask. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.